Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. According to Wednesday, August 19th spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful BNB, Steffy Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, will have to make a few important decisions that will impact her marriage to John Finnegan, Tanner Novlin, and the future of their family. When Steffy awoke at Forrester Creations with Carter Walton, Lawrence St. Victor, naked and unclothed, she was appalled. Now that Finn has caught up with her at home, Steffy is wriggling because of the drunken error they committed. Finn has already begun groveling and admitted that he made a grave mistake by delaying notifying Steffy about Sheila Carter's, Kimberlyn Brown trip. Finn wants Steffy to know how much he regrets his actions, which did not honor her. Naturally, when Steffy undressed with Carter in the Forrester CEO office, she also disregarded Finn and her marital vows. Steffy will push all of it aside and concentrate on Finn's own error because she can't even handle what happened at the moment. Finn hasn't done enough to persuade Steffy that he genuinely recognizes Sheila's threat. Because of this, Steffy will find it difficult to trust Finn once more and proceed with a reconciliation. But in the end, Steffy's guilt about what transpired with Carter might have a role in what happens. Maybe in the end, Steffy will realize she's open to trying to mend her marriage, and Finn will be relieved to have another shot. Don't miss the difficult decisions that lie ahead and the secrets that Steffy will retain. She may possibly decide that her sensational Carter news must remain hidden forever. Fans may have to wait a little while longer for a follow-up on their relationship, but Daphne Rose Walton, Muriel Hilaire, also recently crawled back to apologize to Carter. The BNB episode on Wednesday will be quite busy because viewers will also witness Katie Logan Spencer, Heather Tom, worrying over Melissa Dillon's, Sydney Bullock plans. Katie will interrogate Dillon at the beach house and attempt to push him back into Electra Forrester, Lania Grace, because it is clear that she is worried about his pursuit of Will Spencer, Crew Morrow. Will might tell Katie that Electra doesn't want to get back together, and acknowledge that he's willing to start over with Dillon. There will be a furious confrontation between Dillon and Electra at Forrester Creations, where Dillon will once again be subject to Electra's anger. Electra will point out that if she wanted to, she could fire Dillon using her Forrester standing. Stay tuned for all the excitement as teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful indicate that Dillon and Electra will have some heated moments. Steffy Forrester Finnegan stood in the silence of her bedroom in the Forrester home, long shadows thrown on the floor by the late afternoon light coming through the sheer curtains. There was no sign of the wedding ring that had previously rested firmly on her finger. It was still someplace in Monaco, thrown away in a flash of unadulterated rage that continued to reverberate like a physical pain in her chest. She had tossed it at Finn and said their marriage was over 2 days ago, but the weight of that choice had not gone away. Now, on this Wednesday, she had to make the impossible decision of what to do next. Her mind relentlessly repeated the events of the preceding days. Years of suffering had been reset by the enchanted reunion at the Monaco church. Finn, the guy who had previously risen from the grave to win her heart again, had shown up like a vision from their past. They had talked about their kids, strolled along the beach for a few priceless hours, and given themselves permission to think that Sheila Carter's shadow would finally be banished. The truth had then come to light. Finn was aware that Sheila was on the aircraft. He had concealed it from her. Even worse, he had insisted that the lady who had shot them both should be given another chance when confronted. Steffy had sensed the final strand of trust breaking. Determined to distance herself from the guy she still loved more than she cared to acknowledge, she had flown back to Los Angeles by herself, commercial flight and all. She had turned to the one person who understood broken marriages at that precise moment for solace after landing. Following Daphne's departure, Carter Walton had been tending to his own wounds. At Forrester Creations, 2 broken people drinking a bottle of wine had appeared to be innocuous enough until the alcohol eroded what little self-control they still had. Her cheeks were still burning with a mixture of uncertainty and guilt from the previous night's fade to dark. Had they stepped over a boundary that would never be crossed again? She felt both betrayed and saved when she recalled Carter's arms encircling her. Finn had returned to Los Angeles. determined to fight for his marriage. He had taken a plane home as soon as he realized she had abandoned him in Monaco. He had been welcomed initially by Ridge's rage. After that, Brooke had been quietly disappointed. But none of that was as important as the discussion Steffy anticipated. She was no longer able to avoid it. Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. Taylor entered, her face carefully balancing professional detachment with maternal worry. "He's downstairs," Taylor muttered. "He requested me to let you know that he won't go until you talk to him. If you're not ready, I can send him away," Steffy said, shaking her head. "I'm prepared. Or as prepared as I'll ever be." Taylor spent a considerable amount of time observing her daughter. "The kids and I support you in whatever you chose." "I know." Steffy's voice sounded more composed than she had anticipated. "You don't have to protect Finn's feelings at the expense of your own peace. That's why this is so challenging." "A part of me still wants to protect him," she said as she carefully made her way down the stairs, each step bearing the weight of the two choices she had previously made in the solitude of her room. Finn appeared to have aged 10 years in 48 hours as he waited in the living room. As soon as she walked in, his eyes met hers, and the unadulterated hope in them almost broke her resolve. "Steffy." He started to move forward, then halted. "I appreciate you seeing me." "You don't deserve it," she acknowledged. "I know I don't deserve it." The statements came out of fatigue rather than hatred. "However, we have kids. We have a past." Finn's shoulders slumped with a mixture of comfort and fear. "It's not an option to pretend none of that exists. Keeping Sheila away from you was the worst decision I've ever made. I believed that I was safeguarding our time together. I believed I could manage her and keep her at bay." Steffy put up a physical barrier between them by crossing her arms, saying, "I was wrong on every level. Finn, you didn't merely keep a secret. You stood up for her. You stood there and told me she deserved a chance despite everything she had done to this family, including shooting us both. Do you realize how that affected me?" "I do now," he said in a broken voice. "Since she is my biological mother, I was attempting to have faith in her at the time. I didn't realize that bullets are not erased by blood." The first choice rose in Steffy's throat, ready to be said. "I forgot that your safety and our children's safety come before any second chance she might think she's earned." She had practiced it over the course of the night before. "I'm not prepared to permanently dissolve this marriage. Not quite yet. Both of us are necessary for the kids. Instead of giving up on each other after the first disastrous setback, Hayes and Kelly need parents who stand up for one another. We are not going to file for divorce, which is my initial decision. Not right now. Not this week. We're splitting up. You're going to remain somewhere else. We'll be co-parents." Finn's expression changed to one of cautious hope. "And we will see if trust can be rebuilt one careful step at a time. I'll do anything, Steffy. Counseling. Sheila has unbreakable boundaries. If it means removing her from my life, I'll do it." She raised a hand and said, "Just give me the chance to prove I'm still the man you married." This leads me to my second choice. The room's atmosphere deepened. "And this one is non-negotiable." Finn was breathing heavily as he waited. "Sheila is no longer in our lives. Forever. No calls. No visits. There is no emergency contact information. No she's changed talks. You will contact security and have her taken away if she shows up at the hospital, Forrester, the kids' school, or any place close to this family. You're not going to talk to her. You won't stand up for her. Under no circumstances will you soften your feelings for her. This separation is final, and I will file for divorce the same day if I find out that you have contacted her once more. Do you get what I'm saying?" Finn's eyes sparkled. "Get it. Absolutely. I've already paid too much for Sheila." Steffy looked for any hint of hesitancy on his face and saw none. "I won't let her cost me you." The part of her that was still in love with him wanted to be near to him so he could hug her the way he used to. The part of her that had hurled a wedding ring into a beach in Monaco remained steadfast. "Those are my terms. Take them or leave them." Without hesitation he replied, "I take them. I'll locate a spot today. Until you extend an invitation for me to return to this house, I will remain outside." Taylor showed up in the doorway, obviously having had enough. "I'll prove every single day that Sheila is no longer part of the equation. Finn, I'll assist you with packing a suitcase." Finn nodded and turned back to Steffy, saying, "You'll need to make other arrangements because the guest house is occupied. Before I leave, can I visit the kids? Only for a short while. I'll keep my mouth shut about us." Steffy gave the request some thought. "I just need them to know their dad is still here. Kelly and Hayes would suffer if he were denied." 15 minutes. In the play area. "Taylor will remain with you," he said, accepting the boundaries without protest. Steffy collapsed onto the closest couch as he trailed Taylor upstairs, her hands shaking. Both choices had been made. One provided a precarious route ahead. The other established a distinct line that will never be smudged again. It remained to be seen if Finn could traverse that path without tripping. In another part of Los Angeles, Katie Logan Spencer was standing in Will's beach home doorway with her arms folded and a stern scowl. Every parental fear she had was triggered by Dylan's presence in her son's life. The young lady said they were pals. Katie noticed something much more deliberate. She became even more suspicious after Electra and Dylan got into a furious dispute that same afternoon. Half the design floor could hear Electra's vow to dismiss Dylan from Forrester Creations. Before things got worse, Katie planned to ask Will for clarification. Steffi was still by herself with her decisions back at the estate. The afternoon continued into the evening. With just one duffel bag and a promise that was simultaneously hopeful and burdensome, Finn departed. Carter sent her a single text to see how she was doing following the hazy borders from the night before. In response, she gave a succinct assurance that she was all right and just needed some space. Whatever the Carter chapter had been, it would have to wait. Her focus was on the meticulous rebuilding of a marriage that had almost fallen apart on a Monaco beach. Grew dark. Steffi went back to her room after checking on the sleeping kids and kissing their foreheads. Finn's watch was usually on the nightstand, but the empty space felt louder than any disagreement. She took a seat on the bed's edge and gave herself one solitary moment to mourn the simple love they had once had. Then her shoulders straightened. Both rulings were upheld. Separation under certain restrictions. Sheila's complete banishment. Finn's actions in the coming days and weeks would decide everything else. Apologies were insufficient to rebuild trust that had been so severely damaged. Proof was needed. It needed to be consistent. It needed a guy who was prepared to put his wife ahead of the familial ties that had previously cost them both dearly. He had been offered the narrowest route back to her by Steffi. The remainder of their lives, as well as the lives of the two young children sleeping down the hall, would be shaped by whether he walked it successfully or tripped into permanent exile. She had completed her task for the time being. Her decision's startling clarity enveloped her like a cocoon of protection. The woman who flung a ring and fled was no longer she. She was the one who stayed long enough to establish the conditions before moving away to see if the man she loved could accept them. Everything would become clear in the days ahead. Steffi Forrester Finnegan stood in the silence of her Malibu house, long shadows cast on the polished floors by the late afternoon sun slanting through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Beyond the glass, the water seemed serene, a false blue mirror that revealed nothing of the storms that had been raging within her for days. Since coming back from Monaco, she had hardly slept at all. The church bells, Finn's optimistic smile, Sheila's unexpected entrance on that beach, and the way her own hand had moved almost on its own when she tore the wedding ring from her finger and tossed it at him were the same images she saw every time she closed her eyes. Without the kids, the house seemed too big. Taylor had insisted on keeping Hayes and Kelly with her for a little while longer so Steffi could sort herself out. As if a few peaceful hours and a cup of tea could solve a marriage that was falling apart. Steffi struggled to breathe while pressing her fingertips to her temples. A dull memory of the bottle of wine she and Carter had shared in the Forrester offices, The tears and the sudden frantic yearning to not feel alone, the hangover from the previous night still lingered at the borders of her skull. What had transpired on that couch was still beyond her comprehension. She had been spilling out all the raw wounds Finn had left her with one moment, and then she had woken up nude next to Carter Walton, both of them horrified, frantically searching for clothes, and uttering hurried apologies that neither of them quite believed. She hadn't informed Finn. She was unable to inform Finn. Not quite yet. Perhaps never. She was drawn out of the spiral by a quiet knock at the front door. She already knew who it would be. That morning, Finn had sent 3 texts, each one more cautious than the last. He was in Los Angeles. He had to see her. As long as it took, he would wait. None of them had been addressed by Steffy. Nevertheless, she moved to the door and opened it, her bare feet making no sound on the wood. Finn appeared to be a man who had not slept either. His jaw was darkened by stubble. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and the normally calm assurance in his gaze had given way to something raw and beseeching. He had a tiny paper bag in one hand. She understood it was coffee. At their favorite spot close to the hospital, she consistently requested the same order. "Steffy," he uttered, her name sounding like a prayer. Without saying anything, she moved aside and said, "Thank you for opening the door." He entered, placed the coffee on the kitchen island, and looked up at her. There seemed to be a third presence in the room as the silence grew between them. Finn started. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I am aware of that. However, I must be heard. I want you to know that Sheila will never again be a part of our life. Not at all. I informed her. I was explicit about it." Steffy placed her arms across her chest and said, "She's gone. You previously told her that. More than once. She managed to find herself on the same plane as you. I didn't invite her, yet she managed to find us on the beach. She wasn't someone I wanted there. You lied about it after I attempted to send her home as soon as we touched down. You gave me the impression that it was just the 2 of us when you looked me in the eye in that chapel." Finn's shoulders slumped. "You gave me the impression that we were starting over. I was afraid I might lose you. I reasoned that perhaps we might return to our previous state if I could just keep her away for a few days and show you how much I still loved you without her shadow looming over everything. It was foolish. It was self-centered." Steffy moved past him to the window and gazed out at the ocean, saying, "I know that now." Since she had woken up next to Carter and felt the icy weight of what she had done, the first option had been taking shape in her head for hours. She had spent the morning with Taylor, listening to her mother discuss boundaries, trust, and the distinction between self-preservation and forgiveness in that cool, collected manner. Taylor had refrained from pushing. All she had asked was, "What do you need to feel safe again?" The response had been rough and straightforward. Steffy faced Finn once more. "I require room. Actual space. Not for a few days while you attempt to persuade me that everything is all right." The words struck like a blow. "I need you to move out of this house." Finn's face became colorless. "Steffy, I'm not saying it's done forever. I am stating that I am unable to have you present at this time. I see Sheila's face on that beach every time I look at you. I see how you stood up for her. The untruth is visible to me." He moved in her direction. "And I can't rebuild anything while I'm still drowning in that." She raised a hand. "Please, don't. Simply put, pack a bag. Choose to stay with Ridge and Brooke, book a motel, or return to your former residence. It doesn't matter to me." Finn's voice broke. "But you can't stay under this roof until I know I can trust you again. The children will continue to see you. If you'd want every day. Not here though. Not while I'm attempting to determine whether this marriage is something I can still believe in." He gazed at her for a considerable amount of time, looking for any indication that her expression would soften. He gave a single, firm nod when he discovered none. "All right, leave. I'm not giving up on us, though. I'll go to any lengths. Whatever you require." Steffy remained silent. She watched him make his way to the master bedroom down the hall. She heard the sound of drawers opening and closing again. She forced herself not to cry and remained at the window with her arms crossed. This was the proper course of action. It had to be the correct decision. Living in a home that served as a constant reminder of all the betrayals she had experienced was untenable. Finn came back 20 minutes later, carrying a duffel bag over one shoulder. He placed it near the door and gave her one more glance. He whispered, "I love you. That hasn't altered." She nodded, unable to respond. Not for 1 second. Without saying anything further, he departed. There was complete silence when the door snapped shut behind him. Steffy finally started crying as she collapsed onto the closest stool. They were silent, almost dejected. The initial choice had been made by her. She had separated the two of them. However, the second choice, which was more hazardous and weighty than the first, was still pending.